James is an incredible book of the Bible. I was asked last spring if I would teach a series on the book of James, and I thought, well, I've read it several times, I've studied it a few times, I can do that. But as I spent the summer reading and living and breathing and eating and sleeping James, I realized that there's so much to this 5 little chapters that he writes, and I found it to be a real jewel for me in my faith. James is full of contrast. James has this way of saying certain things are from above and certain things are from below or from the earth. And he spends a lot of time making that contrast between those two things. He also spends a lot of time giving us images that use our senses. There's a thing where a man looks in a mirror and walks away and forgets what he looks like. There's a thing where a flame turns into a forest fire. There's a part where he says the word is planted in you, and you could almost feel like this word is growing in the way in which it's planted. He's got a lot of hypothetical situations that start with, well, suppose this, or suppose that, or if you do this, or if you do that. And he kind of does it in a way that is a subtle warning and encouragement to his readers. He is unlike anything else in the New Testament except maybe one thing, and that's the teachings of Jesus. James has this same kind of flair that Jesus did. And while James doesn't use a parable in the sense that Jesus used parables, he still gets his point across with the same kind of images. The farmer who waits for the harvest, the farmer who's watching the autumn and spring rain. James doesn't go some places where we want him to go. He doesn't tell us. In fact, this is why Martin Luther didn't like the book. Martin Luther didn't like James because James didn't show him Christ. And I think by that Martin Luther meant he doesn't tell me about his birth or his healing ministries or his crucifixion or his resurrection. But James shows Christ in other ways. He shows Christ in the way in which he shows us how to develop and mature and complete our faith. A faith that's just up here is not faith to James. And unless your faith works in the way in which you talk, in the way in which you use your tongue, in the way in which you do for your neighbor and love your neighbor, James is saying that's not faith at all. And James' whole goal for his whole letter is, I want your faith to mature. And this is what that looks like. This is what it looks like to look like Jesus in the things that you say and the things that you do. So I would encourage anyone who's got an inkling that they might like something practical and also complex to come and join us with James and the messages that God gives us through his tool of James. You will also spend your nights waking up and thinking, oh, I got it now. I've got it now. This is what he was saying. I have thoroughly enjoyed James, and I hope each person that sits here with us on Sunday night or wherever you might be will also grow to love his images, his messages, his faith, his contrast, the complexity of the way in which he puts his arguments together, and walk out of here doing what he says faith does.